All right, good evening, everybody. It is right at 6 p.m. It's June 13th. This is our June regular meeting of the Town of Spencer Board of Aldermen. And with that, we call the meeting to order. And Mr. Muhammad is going to give our invocation this evening.
With all minds and hearts clear, we come together, Lord, today to do the business of the Town of Spencer. Please lead us in the right direction, which will benefit the residents, the employees, and more or less at all the board. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, board, you have before you your agenda for this evening. And so with that, are there any requested additions or deletions from the board or staff this evening before we adopt it? All right. Any from staff?
No, we did make a few adjustments that we talked about at the pre-agenda, and everything's, from our perspective, lined up, ready to go.
Right. Very good. So hearing none, your agenda is before you, board. We will entertain a motion to adopt.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
All right.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Sledge, second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right. All opposed? And that's approved unanimously. All right, we'll move forward with our recognitions. And Mayor Pro Tem, you have a few recognitions for students of the fourth quarter to make.
Yes, I have two students that were recognized by their school at the end of fourth quarter at their award ceremony. They both have already received their plaques, and we will be implementing this program again next year too. Nevaeh Wood from the high school was selected as North Rowan's student of the quarter, and her teacher said that she's an shining example of scholarship and leadership within the school and the community. Even her peers look to her as reliable and as a reasonable and reliable source of wisdom. She's a joy to teach and an all-around sweetheart. She aspires to be a teacher, and hopefully she will come back and teach here at the North Rowan School. And she is enrolling at Appalachian this fall and is still committed to her teaching goals. And I noticed when Jonathan and I were at the award ceremony, she received quite a few awards, so she's outstanding in a lot of ways. So congratulations to Nevaeh and best wishes to her and the rest of the senior class. Our elementary choice was Maha Muhammad Munsasser, and her teacher said that she's kind and friendly, she completes her work, and she's an advocate for learning, even though she's in one of the lower grades. She's respectful, she follows her directions, and she sets a great example for all the other students. So congratulations to these two young ladies. We're very proud of them, and we look forward to hearing great things about them next year too.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Ms. Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a special group of people that I would like to recognize for the work that they've been doing year after year to bring joy and fun to senior citizens of Spencer. Somewhere between 90 and 120 hungry, happy people show up at Oakdale Baptist Church in early December and then again in May to enjoy food, fun, and fellowship. We can thank Terry and Sue Schultz for their leadership in making this a success. In addition, there are a number of other volunteers who pitch in to help, so our thanks will go to Brent Beaver from Cross Life, Sylvia Foshi from Dorset Chapel, Brenda Clending from Whosoever Will Come, Joyce Poole and John Limley from Oakdale Baptist, Millie Thompson, Ruth Eliam, and Linda Miller from Central Methodist Church. So thank you all for giving up your time, doing a wonderful job, putting together a nice event, and doing handcrafted table favors and decorations. It's always a joy to attend those luncheons. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. Are there any other recognitions from the board at this point? All right. We'll move forward with public comment. We do have a few folks signed up to speak this evening, and so we will call you in order as you signed up. We have 4 individuals signed up. I will remind you we have a time limit of 3 minutes, and so you'll approach the lectern here and have 3 minutes. We do have a timer, and so please state your name when you approach, and we will then begin the time after that. So we will welcome Tammy Pinkston forward first.
My name is Tammy Pinkston. I would just like to make a response to some comments that I heard on a meeting that y'all had on May the 23rd. First, I'd like to start by saying that I am thankful and will always be respectful to those that started this parade and to those that I was fortunate to work alongside of that taught me to love this parade as they loved the parade. I am quite aware of how the parade started in Spencer. 70 years is a long time. Organizers change, organizations change, people change, growth happens, and communities change. A lot of changes in 70 years. To say that TISTA season has spun off to represent other things is not only incorrect, but totally inaccurate. If including all during a holiday season parade based on race, sex, or religion is wrong, I must have missed that class. Everyone celebrates and participates and enjoys the holiday season differently. And that one float that individuals see for 2 minutes, that in one person's eyes is wrong, just maybe the same perception of a Christmas nativity scene is wrong in another's eyes. We all are different. We all have different beliefs. I respect your beliefs, and I hope you would respect mine. To hear comments like burn it to the ground and start all over is extremely hurtful, especially to all those that have contributed so much over the years to your community with an event that has been cherished, enjoyed, and has created a lasting, memorable tradition for so many. It was also mentioned that there could be discussions, open discussions, on future parade permit approvals, which is rightfully your choice. I would just like to mention, as a representative and volunteer of the TISTA Season Committee, we have always been open to ideas, concerns, suggestions, and involvements from Spencer in today's environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pinkston.
Thanks.
All right, the next comment is from, I believe this is Tom Street.
Good evening. My name is Tom Strini. I live at 15 Beauregard Drive in Spencer. I'm here tonight to ask that the Spencer Town Police stop using a 1,000,000 candle power lit vehicle in the wee hours of the morning. Every time that vehicle goes down the street, the shadows that it casts set off my security camera and turns on all my outside lights, which is what it's supposed to do when it sees a person. But it can't distinguish between the shadows cast by the lights and an actual person in my driveway. Now, this is pain in 2 ways. One is it wakes me up because I get an announcement internally that there's somebody in my driveway. And secondly, it turns on my lights, which my neighbor has informed me annoy him at night because I've got a lot of floodlights. I shouldn't have to compromise my security or my sleep at night. I calculated based on crime statistics that I could find for Spencer that the chance of a police officer happening upon a burglary at any given time is 1 in 10 million. You're better off buying a lottery ticket. So it's not really accomplishing anything, and I have to question what is the purpose of the police having a pickup truck with all these lights on it? What is a police officer going to do if they apprehend a burglar, and where are they going to put him? In the bed of the pickup truck? Or have to call somebody else to bring a car that has a separation between the driver and the back seat to put a suspect in? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. String. All right, next is Tamara Sheffield.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, alderpersons. I am Tamara Sheffield. I want to bring well wishes and love to all the citizens of Spencer. I feel compelled to do so after seeing the Spencer budget meeting on Tuesday, May 23rd. I come to you today not only as an American, a North Carolinian, a Rowan County citizen, but only as those things. I am also a citizen approaching a certain retirement age. I am female. I'm a member of the LGBT plus community. And I'm also today here as a Christian that believes that the love of Jesus welcomes all, regardless of our religious affiliation. For clarity, I'm here about your discussions around Tis the Season Holiday Parade. It began with a statement that the Tis the Season Committee, which Mayor Williams is a part, was asking for support to get community sponsorships to help raise money and sponsorships to ensure an event for all, regardless of our zip codes. There appeared to be no monetary ask of this board, so like Salisbury, which was repeatedly pointed out, the city of Spencer, like Salisbury, gives, and I quote, nada, zero, zip. Both cities do support with float entries, community sponsorships, volunteers, public services, police, and fire departments. Working together allows for an event that Spencer and Salisbury should be proud. As I said, I bring love, none of which I really saw on exhibit in that board meeting that night. When remarks against LGBTQ plus, women, non-Christians, and the elderly are made, we need to take notice. Regardless of your zip code, we need to take notice. When condoning acts of violence, which are actually physically demonstrated, and arson is encouraged, when no one said a word against this language or behavior. When I hear this, I feel compelled to bring love to all of your citizens. When these statements are met with silence and giggles, you are condoning them. I'm surprised this behavior was allowed, and let us today participated in. I assume your citizens were disappointed as well, but they may not know because it was a budget meeting, and a lot of people don't watch this. Thank you, Alderwoman Sledge, for attempting to show some level of support, which in this room I'm sure took lots of courage. Again, I remind you today, I'm only here as a citizen. And yeah, I know the narrative when I quit talking. She doesn't live here, go back to your city, this is none of your business, etc. I'm here as a human who believes that other humans need to stand up for other humans. I have my voice, and while not everyone can use theirs, I can use mine. Again, I bring love to all of you, and I wish for you to acknowledge your words do have an impact. Hopefully, I have encouraged you to actively participate in sensitivity or DEE and I training because people are watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sheffield. And our final speaker tonight is Mr. John Hinderlight.
Good evening, Mayor Williams.
Good evening.
Spencer Board of Alderman. My name is John Hinderlight. I live at 3 North Road, Salisbury, 28144, and I thank you for this opportunity. My goal here is to try to begin a process of understanding. One of the elements of a true level of understanding is to discover if we have anything in common. In this case, the Spencer Board of Aldermen and I have the privilege of serving our communities in an elected capacity. That capacity is an honorable service provided by honorable people. In that service, we've all had the pleasure of participating in the Holiday Caravan Parade, and in your case, also the Tis the Season Spectacular Parade. I'm jealous of you, as the Tis the Season Spectacular Parade has provided much enjoyment to so many people in Rowan County. From your vantage point as participants, you were able to observe your friends and fellow citizens' enjoyment firsthand. Having a successful parade takes a lot of effort, which does include making financial contribution appeals. Those appeals make it possible to relieve taxpayers of both Spencer and Salisbury of any direct financial burden. The Rowan County Convention and Visitors Bureau provides valuable administrative support, relieving both municipalities of that burden. If we agree that our friends and neighbors enjoy the event immensely and that considerable effort is needed to continue to provide an enjoyable parade, how do we decide on what is an equitable level of effort from various stakeholders to continue to present a quality product? There needs to be an equitable formula, but equitable does not equate to equal. It just needs to be fair. There are volunteers with skill sets, contacts, professional relationships, earnest work ethics that can take care of organizing, fundraising, special attractions, media coverage, etc. Let these folks do what they do well, and if that is a greater contribution to the effort, okay. However, there are other ways to support the collective effort. All it takes is a little resourcefulness and cooperation. I know all of this as one of these volunteers is my wife that I've been married to for 43 years, and I have observed how hard she, along with her close friends, have worked, and the rest of the committee have worked so we can all enjoy the 'Tis the Season Spectacular Parade. I appreciate that effort. After watching the board's discussion during your May 23rd call meeting, I am really confused. There was such animus directed toward these volunteers. I'm wondering if a collective effort between Spencer and Salisbury is even possible. There was even a reference to denying a permit for the parade. From the perspective of a former elected official, that discussion lacked civility and respect. There was no appreciation of past volunteer efforts. You received multiple reactions from different sources, so my comments should not come as a surprise. The current volunteer's goal is to organize a parade that is inclusive, welcoming, and enjoyable for all citizens who want to participate and watch. There is no room for hatred and disrespect in this event. It will not be tolerated. After watching the May 23rd meeting, I wonder if the majority of this board shares those same sentiments as the volunteers. Do you even want to collaborate on a shared parade this year or ever? I just want to understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, we have reached the end of our public comment for folks here tonight. Have we received any written correspondence?
No, sir, not this week.
All right. Thank you very much. So we will move forward now in our agenda. And so you have before you your consent agenda, which includes approval of minutes from our previous meetings, a budget ordinance, and then lien approval. Is there a need to pull anything from the consent agenda tonight for further discussion? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion,
we approve.
All right, a motion by Mr. Miller,
second.
second by Ms. Sledge. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved. All right, the next item we have is to consider an appointment to the planning board. And I don't see Mr. Blunt here this evening, so Mr. Francis.
Yes, and Mayor and members of the board, Steve is unable to attend this evening, but he did address the board at the pre-agenda on Thursday, and the Planning and Zoning Board did consider this appointment at their last meeting, which was yesterday, and did vote to recommend that to the Board of Aldermen. I believe Ms. Jackson is here this evening. Okay. Our understanding was she would have been here to introduce herself to you, but without that in place, the next step would be for the board to consider this appointment.
Okay. So, board, you have before you a request to appoint Jessica Jackson to the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment. And with that, are there any questions for the manager?
Mr. Mayor, I sat in on that board meeting last night as liaison to the planning board and did have an opportunity to meet and hear Ms. Jackson and what she had to say. I will say that I was favorably impressed with her, and I believe she would be a good addition to our planning and zoning board.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. Any other comments or questions?
I concur with everything that she said. She's very smart. She grew up in this area, And her business is real estate, so she's very aware of housing and planning. So I think she'll be an asset.
All right, with that, we'll consider a motion to appoint from the board.
Make a motion, we appoint Jessica Jackson to the planning board.
All right, so motion from Mr. Miller,
Second.
second from Ms. Sledge. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved. Thank you very much. The next item is to consider adopting Budget Ordinance 23-13 for a $5,000 grant from the Blanche and Julian Robertson Family Foundation, as well as a $5,000 grant from the Margaret Woodson Foundation for the purpose of funding the downtown mural project.
Yes, and I want to check with Mike to make sure is Scott happen to be on the Zoom connection. Okay. So this information is in your packet. This is another round of grant funding that's come through for our ongoing public art program. 2 $5,000 grants from the two foundations mentioned, and of course the goal is to bring a series of high quality murals to Spencer in various places, and so this will allow us to increase our current year budget by $10,000 to incorporate the received grant funds.
Any questions from the board or comments? I'll just comment that we continue to receive multiple funding awards from grant opportunities for the mural project, and I think it's gaining a lot of attention, not only in our community but elsewhere. And so it's been nice to see that happening. So is there a motion to adopt Budget Ordinance 23-13?
So moved.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Morgan. All in favor? All right. All opposed? And that is approved. All right, the next item is to consider adopting Budget Ordinance 23-14 to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual budget. This budget has been presented to you last month. We held a public hearing on it on Thursday, and it is now before the board for consideration of adoption. Mr. Francis.
Thank you again, Mayor and members of the board. This is a roughly $5.8 million budget for the town of Spencer over the next year. The feedback that was received at the May 23rd workshop has been incorporated in the updated budget ordinance before you, but this budget does, as recommended, accomplish several key goals, including several public safety positions, our second year of seed funding for the business incubator concept and Rowan Idea Center, continuing support of local tourism and local events, continuing and expanding our public art development, a third year of hosting a Lead for North Carolina Fellow, legal review and recodification of our town code of ordinances, enhancements to our town newsletter and social media marketing, a comprehensive signage enhancement programming, including funding to incorporate an electronic sign here at the Park Plaza, launching our safer and more efficient garbage collection process at the end of July, and many other things. But we appreciate all the feedback and involvement of our board and our staff to get us to this point, and be happy to answer any questions if you have them. Otherwise, we do have a updated ordinance for your consideration.
All right, thank you very much. Questions or comments from the board at this point? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt Budget Ordinance 23-14 to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual budget?
Move.
There is a motion by Mr. Muhammad.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Howe. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. Next item is another budget ordinance, 23-15, for $5,765 for additional funding from Rowan County for first responders Spencer Moose Lodge and a private donation.
Thank you again, Mayor, members of the board. This accommodates several items for our police and fire departments. The first responder portion is an additional level of funding that the county is providing to all the fire departments related to their response to EMS calls. There's been a level of funding, kind of a flat level of funding, I think, that has been historically provided across the board, but this is a new amount that's being provided based on the calls answered for a certain portion of the year, and that's going to be, I believe, every 6 months, or is it quarterly? That will be occurring over time to allow us to cover our expensive supplies and such for EMS calls.
Yeah, so the county, they've done where they're going to do a stipend per call now, on top of roughly the $2,000 they give us on an annual basis to cover our expenses for medical supplies for our medical calls. They're also doing a $5 per call stipend. So ideally, what they're hoping to do, they're obviously behind for this being the first year. We received payment for, I believe it was the first and second quarter. But at the end of each quarter, we'll send them a spreadsheet. They'll send us the funding for those calls that we ran. That way it's fair across the board versus a set amount. Somebody runs more than the next. So that way that's fair.
And then the other parts of this budget amendment is a gift of or donation of $2,265 from the Spencer Moose Lodge that's going to fund the purchase of ballistic shields. And then there was also an anonymous donor that provided the town $1,000 with wishes that they would support public safety needs. And our police and fire departments are both going to be able to use that to purchase some portable scene lighting that can be powered off of batteries and carried around as needed. So certainly appreciated.
All right, any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt budget ordinance 23-15?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Morgan,
Second.
second by Mr. Miller. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved. Next item is to consider adopting ordinance 23-17, and that would amend chapter 7, section 71.42 to the town's code of ordinances. Mr. Francis?
Yep, and Mayor, members of the board, again, as Steve discussed on Thursday at the pre-agenda, this allows us to give our police department some tools to enforce if we have the occurrence of motorized vehicles within our recreation areas. And this was also considered yesterday by the Planning and Zoning Board and recommended for your approval.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt?
I move to adopt the amendment of an ordinance 23-17 to amend chapter 7, section 71.2 to the town's code of ordinances.
Motion by Ms. Sledge,
Second.
second by Mr. Miller. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved. Thank you all. And the next item is to consider adopting resolution 23-1 or 12 for North Carolina Senate Bill SB 675. And again, this is the current Senate bill that is proposing to eliminate consideration of extraterritorial jurisdictions for ETJs. And I believe you were briefed on this last week.
Yes.
Ms. Sledge, I believe you had some conversation with our state senator, Mr. Ford. And I think there's still maybe some question from the Planners Association on ambiguity in the bill and if it might at some point impact counties with populations greater than 55 or 50,000. So with that, we'll open it up for any additional input or any questions from the board.
Senator Ford did tell me that this would have no bearing at all on Rowan County because of the size of our population. But Mr. Blunt and I talked about it again too, and it has been passed by the Senate, but goes back to the House now for their approval on it. But Mr. Blunt and I spoke about it, and he does have some concerns, and as do the Planning Association, that could change. And so it makes sense for us to go ahead and send this resolution, approve this resolution, and be prepared to pass it along to our.
And I'll say, as a small municipality, even though Rowan County is a much bigger county than what the cap on this particular bill is the threshold for it. You know, we can, I think, commiserate with other small communities that may be in counties that are below that threshold, and that would be limiting their ability for future growth. And so I think if we put ourselves in their shoes, we can certainly empathize with their situation, which I think is why, you know, this bill seeks to take quite a bit of authority and quite a bit of really sound planning and future land use planning away from local municipalities. Which I think if you play that to the end of the tape, the ramifications down the road could be quite concerning. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Basically a $10 million gamble to a certain extent.
Right. So with that, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 23-12?
So moved.
The motion for Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? There's a second for Mr. Howe. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. All right, the next item is to consider adopting Resolution 23-13 for establishing the criteria for selecting the design, build, construction project delivery method for our fire station addition. Mr. Franzese.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. And this resolution would actually establish criteria that could be used for any project that would qualify and would allow us, as projects come along, the first one being the fire station expansion, to determine whether or not it's appropriate for this delivery method. We have discussed this for some time, and this is the next step related to the fire station project for us to be able to move forward in that direction. The authority to do this was provided generally to all units back in 2013. There's been some revisions to the general statutes from when it was first adopted in terms of the required criteria that are need to be a part of this sort of resolution. And what we have before you is a resolution that is modeled after a few different local examples here in the state, and also in compliance with the general statutes and their requirements. So we have 6 criteria outlined within the resolution, and the board may adopt as recommended or make some adjustments. Of course, adjustments still would have to be within the required of the state statute, so there's not a whole lot of wiggle room on the criteria. Another thing that can be adjusted as written, the process would be for staff to bring each individual project back as a recommendation to the board for a project to be designated as to use this delivery method. If you would prefer to have staff make that designation, you could grant the manager authority to do that. There's examples in both cases. Again, this is currently written so that the individual projects would come back before you with as a recommendation for this method.
All right, thank you, Mr. Franzese. Questions from the board? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 23
I move that we adopt Resolution 23-13, establishing criteria for selecting the design, build, construction, project delivery method.
Second.
Stated.
It's a motion from Mr. Morgan, second from Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. All right, the next item is to consider authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract for street paving through our Powellville funds. Mr. Francis and Mr. Taylor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. And Joel Taylor is coming up, and if he could describe our bid process and how we've reached this point.
Sure. So we did, engineer Kimley Horn came up with our bid packet on the priorities, and we set 5 priorities, really 3 priorities with 2 alternates. And then we submitted that and put it out for bid. We did get 3 responsive bidders, which was great. So we didn't have to do it again. I ran into a little issue when we quantified the numbers. We came up with a different number than the low bidder, so we have to move to the next bidder. I believe it's in your board packet, Caroline Site Works. So what we're doing, I think everybody's got it. You didn't get it. I'm sorry. Okay. Does anyone have it? Just Miss Slade doesn't, or you don't? Anybody? I'll go over the numbers if nobody has it. That's what I was.
I think we're good.
You good? Everybody
Yeah.
good? Okay. So what we're looking at is where we are by doing the 3 priorities that we set forth, and then the 2 alternates. By doing that, the going under contract with them at this point in time would take the $220,000 that's in for Powellville of this fiscal year, and then the allotment for next year would cover the remaining cost, and we'd do 1 large paving instead of doing 2 smaller ones. By doing that, then our numbers, we actually have just a little bit left over of the $311,509 with those 2 numbers put together. I'll be happy to take any questions.
I'm just going to say with Jordan Avenue, desperately needs it. So yeah, you need, that's bad.
I didn't go over to the 4, Grant Street would be the total street, would be from 3rd to 4th, the total street, which needs it desperately at this point, especially down around the group home, that area. 4th Street would be just the end from the end where Grant Street is that runs into that individual house up to McCubbin's, which is a terrible piece of road. Both of these are priorities on our list. South Jordan would be from 4th Street all the way to Alexander. The lower end, possibly a patch on the edge where the school bus is. We're still working on that. And then Alexander Street would be from Jordan Avenue to Whitehead. The rest of that was the kind of the list of priorities of where we had it listed, and I tried to lump them close enough together to where we didn't pay a lot of mobilization fees.
And then a block or 2 of South Yadkin.
And then South Yadkin, we'll jump to that one. That'd be their last place that they will go.
I know we talked about it, but you and I talked about it a while back. I know 5th Street's not on here. That section,
yes,
halfway down 5th Street is nearly undrivable. I think you told me that.
I spoke with Jim Beamer about it yesterday.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll get some resolution on that soon.
Thank you.
The one other note I would add is that we had an engineer's estimate opinion of probable cost, and this actually came in, the bid came in below that, so we were glad to see that.
Okay, so that was Grant 3rd to 4th, the 4th Street to the end of it.
Right.
South Jordan 4th to Alexander, Alexander Jordan to Whitehead, and South Yadkin.
That's correct.
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
And I believe South Yadkin, I'll have to look. I'm thinking that's 9th to 11th on South Yadkin. I believe is that correct? Okay. I couldn't remember if I did 8th to 11th or 9th to 11th, but I believe 8th to 9th was fine. We just did 9th to 11th.
It was in the new information that was sent out, but not in our packet that was printed. Sorry.
And I believe what you were seeing, that's the actual bid acceptance, and then also the lowest bidder, which would be Carolina Site Works.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't shut my box. Yeah.
Any schedule time when this is going to be done?
Speaking to Carolina Site Works, after we've kind of jumbled things a little bit, he's saying middle of July. And you estimate probably a couple weeks, being the number of streets that we have being in here. Now, I could slide a little bit one way or the other depending on weather, when they can or can't pave.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into the contract for street paving with 5 areas that have been presented?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Morgan, second by Mr. Miller. All in favor? All right. All opposed? That's approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
We'll move to our departmental reports, and we will start with our planning department and an update from staff on Sellers Ferry Road traffic.
Yes, and so Steve provided his update in the packet, of course, and had some discussion here on Thursday. What we can do, and we can either do it now or we can do it after Chief File gives his regular report. We can talk about the where we are on the traffic study. So up to y'all.
All right. Pleasure of the board.
Keep going.
All right.
Keep talking.
Keep talking. Okay, so I'll ask Chief File to come up then. All right, and so what has transpired is, of course, there were concerns about speeding in the Sowers Ferry and Steeplechase areas. Our police department conducted a traffic study in the area over a total of 18 days. I think 9 or 10 days in each area, and provided us some data. And from that, we've been able to see that, and by and large, most people are traveling the way we would hope they would. There are some occasional folks that go beyond that, and Chief File, if you can jump in and we'll talk about what we've found.
Perfect. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I will try to answer your questions the best I can about the traffic study that we conducted. So just kind of give you a little basis. We have an instrument that was approved last year for purchase that we can hide at remote locations so that the traffic does not see the instrument. They do not know that they are being radar locked. If you have a radar detector, it may show up on there, but I mean, it's not something that stands out. It's not one of these things as a blinking light that tells you to slow down. That's kind of the negative about using the ones that have the speed sign that says you're going 42 miles per hour in a 35, because what's the first thing everybody does is jam on the brakes. So this report is made to give us an accurate representation of what's going on in the community. You know, over the course of the 18 days, we had, I'm sitting there adding numbers right now, about 5,600 vehicles that were caught on the instrument. And then the report is obviously broke down as a lot of data, about 18 pages per report. So I'll try to answer questions if you have it. The basis that we're able to find out, though, is we do not have a significant traffic speeding problem, which is good for us. We're actually very happy to hear that, obviously. As any city street, there are isolated incidents, and I would anticipate that members of the community can probably pick out or have a pretty good idea of the 1 or 2 individuals that may be the speeders in their localized community. But as a rule of thumb, a majority of the individuals are actually going under the speed limit. It's called our 85th percentile, which means basically there's 85% of the traffic that passed that unit was at or under the speed limit. So that's a very good sign for us as far as the potential for accidents and whatnot. I will tell you on the 10-day one that we conducted over on Sowers Ferry, there were 4,253 vehicles that passed. There was one vehicle that met what we would consider egregious speeding, which in the 35 zone, it was going 56 to 60. So there was one vehicle over the course of 10 24-hour days. So I hate to use the term needle in a haystack, but effectively needle in a haystack. On the 8-day study that was actually done in the neighborhood on Steeplechase, there were 1,346 vehicles over those 8 days. And there again, there was one vehicle that was 56 to 60. There was one vehicle that was 51 to 55. And then two vehicles that were 46 to 50. So obviously there were a few vehicles that were captured over those time frames. The potential to place a patrol car in the area and just happen upon these couple individuals is probably not likely. What I would recommend and what I've sent out to the traffic study group, if somebody knows a vehicle, knows the time frame when they're coming to the community and can kind of narrow it down, definitely let us know and we'll try to have a car in the area during that time. That's going to be about the only way we're able to accurately enforce it. Now, on the backside, enforcement's not always the option, so obviously we're hopeful that if the community bands together, if they have their own community meeting, something that we could even help host if we have some buy-in from the community members, maybe somebody can talk to the individuals that are these one or two vehicles and have them slow down voluntarily versus us trying to, locate them and issue a citation to rectify the problem. But I will definitely try to answer any questions you have about the report. I may stutter and have to flip through all these pages and look. There is a lot of data here.
Thank you, Chief. Questions from the board?
Chief Hall, I know you went through a lot of effort, and I keep from the report we don't have a speeding problem. However, I wish there would have been a car there Saturday when it seemed like that Sturgis had come to town. We had motorcycles charging up and down Sowers Ferry. I don't have any specific questions, but I know that some of my neighbors are here, and Jean Coy especially. She and I canvassed the neighborhood. She canvassed Steeplechase, and I canvassed Sowers Ferry Road. Would it be out of protocol to ask if Jean might have some questions for Officer Fowle? Do you have any questions?
If you're requesting it, I think it's appropriate.
Okay. Would you have any questions about the study?
Yeah, that may be. It may would change it a little bit. Looking at the numbers, and it would not change it much though, as far as the numbers that were actually over that limit. I think bear with me just 1 second while I look at the average speed. I believe the average speed, the 85th percentile speed inside the neighborhood was actually 24. So 85% of the people are going 24. So it's very good news for us to actually go on significantly under the speed limit. On the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, that may be something that I would have to check with Steve about. We'd have to do a little digging on. It is under my impression that it is actually 35 in there, and that the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit was placed inappropriately at some point in time, potentially back when the neighborhood was built. We'll have to go back and pull and look at the actual original record sleep, but I believe it's actually 35 in there, so we can verify that. But to answer your question, I don't think it would really skew the numbers much based upon the numbers that were reported in there. Like I said, there's still realistically 4 vehicles out of that 1,346 that were really troublesome that we're concerned about. No, ma'am. Yeah, it does not. It doesn't take photographs. It only gets the speed of the vehicle. Definitely. Mhm. Right. Definitely. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's really going to come up to the community making the calls. I think, we don't have, there's not a unit that is really designed to take photographs. We don't have one. There's not one that's really designed for that, for these instances. They're really designed for generalized information just to tell us, what the speed was and when the volume occurs. So,
I will say this, based on where that location is, I wouldn't consider it a main thoroughfare, except for people maybe that are visiting public works to drop off recycling, but it is mainly residential, right?
Yeah.
So it's either folks that live there or folks that are visiting folks that live there in all likelihood. And if there's anybody that's there for a reason other than that, chances are, if they're up to no good, they're probably not driving fast. They're probably driving pretty slowly canvassing the area.
I will tell you, I will say too. I mean, I know everybody that's familiar with that neighborhood knows there are some officers that live in the neighborhood. There are some firemen that live in the neighborhood. I actually tried to look at this report and look at these 24-hour periods and see if anybody was dispatched on a hot call where they would have been exceeding the speed legally for emergency response. I was not able to figure that out looking at the report. There's so much data here to try to tie that back into the CAD system and look for a report. I will say we were not ourselves dispatched on a call. It doesn't mean that another agency wouldn't have been. So there's always a potential that our 4 vehicles inside the neighborhood may not all be for true offending individuals, but I think it's probably safe to bet there are 4 instances. Very likely they're all the same person. Would be looking at what the average speed of the neighborhood is. The average speed is 24. I think we probably have 1 or maybe 2 offenders in the neighborhood. So definitely, I think it's going to be a neighborhood resolution. If the neighbors call in and let us know if they see an individual speeding in a blue Mustang, if they can give us any sort of time frame when that individual comes and goes, we'll try to put a car down there and look for it. The problem is with the data that we have here, there's no statistic. There's no statistical time for us to base to say that we want to put a car there from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'll tell you, these were really good reports. I think everybody recognizes that. I just ran one of these reports for another agency, and there was a noticeable speeding problem between 2 different time frames of the day. So obviously they had good stats for where to place their vehicles when they would be most likely to encounter somebody speeding. So it's good that we can't jump on it and say we definitely did send them down there at a certain time, because we just don't have enough vehicles here that really indicate that there is a prime time for it. Definitely, if the neighborhood can let us know, I think that's really going to be the key to solving the problem. And like you mentioned, Mr. Morgan, about the vehicles this weekend, we didn't receive a call this weekend, but and I expressed that to another individual in the neighborhood to please call and let us know if there's bikes down there and whatnot. Obviously, they weren't down there, I guess, speeding on the days that these 18 days that the instrument was running. But I'm sure there's other times they're going to.
I really appreciate your efforts.
We'll definitely resolve it as best we can. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate the support. I appreciate the support of the board that allowed us to make this purchase that allows us to run reports like this, because this is invaluable information. Otherwise, if we didn't have this instrument, we would be sitting here spinning our wheels trying to place a car down there 1 hour a day and figure this out. Before we had this, I actually went down there and ran laser on Sowers Ferry one day, and I sat down there for about 2 hours and ran laser. That is a impossible thing to, if you count the hours that this was down there working for us for free. So It definitely is provides a lot of beneficial information. So there will be a lot of these reports that will be ran over the coming months and years as we're trying to actually build a database of where our problems are. You know, we have crime hotspotting. So with this the new ACE team that the board has approved for us this coming year, you know, the way I envision that happening is that team will not only work crime but also work traffic. So as we start running these reports, we're going to find our hotspots in our community, which hopefully will reduce traffic accidents and you know the call volume that we have related to CNR drivers and whatnot. So
Can you run that on Charles Street?
that's actually on the list. Charles, 3rd and 7th are all on the very near list that they will be ran on that.
That's interesting. Good.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think I've been down to the recycling enough times to have been those 4 vehicles.
Just one of them, huh?
Maybe 2.
All right, thank you all.
Any
Any other updates?
I was sweating bullets there for a while because we saw an old man in an old red Nova that was blasting up and down.
He was late for work.
Well, he did
Dodged a bullet.
He did mention the blue Mustang, though.
Yeah. I talked to Sherry about that.
And a blazer too.
Any other planning updates? I know you have the written planning update, and I'm sure Steve briefed you on Thursday. Anything else? Okay. We move forward with our code enforcement update. Mr. Osborne.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, you have my report. I don't have anything to add to that, pending your questions.
All right. Questions from the board on the code enforcement report for the month?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Osborne. Do you know how many vehicles are parked behind the house at 910 North Salisbury Avenue?
I do not. I can see 2 as I pass it.
There's quite a few in there, and it's fenced in the backyard. I know that Susan Morris owns that property.
Yes.
So if you could check, I think it's could be a violation.
We made contact with that resident or the tenant to that home, and he's contacted Steve in reference permit for the fence. In the email that Steve had passed along to the tenant, he made mention of the potential for vehicles in the backyard. I haven't seen anything yet in return, but I can make contact at the door and ask him about it if he's home.
Okay.
If he's home. Otherwise, I think I may have his email address, and I could possibly just reach out that way as well.
Thank you.
What's the and I asked Mr. Blunt about this a couple months ago, but I'm just curious. The I guess for lack of a better word, the kind of temporary auto shop as you're headed out.
Out in the
29?
ETJ?
Yeah, I think when we last talked, they were talking, and they're I'm just curious where we are with that. I mean, and I bring it up for 2 reasons. Number one, there's a big pile of tires out there, or at least there has been.
Yes.
And number 2, it's getting big, especially when I come home, 5:30, 6 o'clock every day. There are a lot of cars kind of piled up, stacked up, right there. And I mean, it's hard to see a little bit. I think, I don't want to put Mr. Blunt's, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I believe he said that I'm not sure our ordinance really stop them from operating, and I think they're working on a more permanent location, that's fine, it's great. But I'm just curious where we are with that.
I spoke to the owner of the property a couple months ago, and the way I understood it, he had already spoke to Mr. Blunt about the use of the property, and that he was using it in accordance with the zoning of the land at the time. The tires, he said those were there when he purchased the property, which I believe it is the truth. And he was intending to remove those tires through attrition to get them up to the landfill. He was bringing trailers over to remove those trailers. I think he moved some around to the back because his intentions was to build a shop where the tires were. That's why he was moving them and removing them. Other than that, I haven't had any contact with him since then. But it has grown exponentially since then.
Yeah, it's more than just a couple of cars.
Yeah.
Like it was a little bit. I mean, there's 15, 20, 30 cars out there sometimes. So at least, and I'm not counting, but as I drive by, I'm just an estimate. It's starting to accumulate.
I'll have to look a little deeper into the codes and find out exactly how he needs to do his parking and what he's limited to. I can collaborate with Mr. Blunt about that and make sure that I speak intelligently with him about it. So.
Other questions?
I've got one. Do you know anybody is living in the house on the corner of First and White Avenue, which was Mr. Orange's house? He passed away. Because he has no relatives. I don't even know if anybody's in there as far as that.
Nobody's living in the home, and nobody should. It's molded up really bad inside, and it would take somebody to be in a biosuit to even go into that house.
So what's going to happen to that?
He has a nephew that lives out in Arizona, who has taken control of the estate, and from last I understand, that his nephew is going to have the property cleaned up and eventually sold.
Okay.
Mr. Sergeant Leonard actually has a key to the property.
Yeah.
And the car that's out there is Mr. Owen's old car.
It is.
Yeah. So if you're thinking that was somebody's other car that was using the property, but that is his car.
I thought it was, but I wasn't sure. But I wasn't sure. I knew he didn't have any relatives as far as locally as far as that goes. But I did notice that after his passing that there was 6 or 8 cars going through the house.
There was a time when an individual was connected to him very briefly, was trying to put this in was trying to take care of his estate.
Okay.
And then it was pushed back on by the nephew when he found out about his death.
Okay.
And so that was that transaction. There was a time when the person was trying to take care of the property and then pushed back on that one.
Okay. Well, thank you for checking and just keep an eye on that.
Okay.
That is an eyesore.
Other comments, questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Osborne. All right. Police Department, Chief File.
I'll try to be much more brief than the last time I was standing up here a few minutes ago. The officers were very busy this month. As noted on the monthly report I submitted, we had 1,537 events. So the good thing is a lot of that is proactive. This kind of answers a little bit of the question from the prior individual that spoke tonight about proactive policing and versus reactive and seeing the vehicles ride around with the lights on. So, there has been numerous studies done by the Department of Justice Standards indicating that proactive approach is very, very beneficial to deterring crime, even if we don't actually catch somebody in the process of committing a crime. So that was kind of the goal, staffing up our patrol side. So we're kind of getting to that point as we get additional officers trained up that we're starting to be less reactive and more proactive. So I think we may have some of those growing pains from individuals who are not used to seeing that as much as what they have in the past. So obviously we can try to turn our light off near individuals that it may bother. But as a rule of thumb, that will probably be something that occurs a lot more often, where we're going to see vehicles riding around with the lights on, either the alley lights or the steady blue lights. Typically they run alley lights so they can see the residents that they pass, make sure there's no doors ajar, nobody running through the yard. And I will tell you, it works, and the way we know it works is because we have people run from us when the light hits them. So that tells us they were up to no good. So that tells me that it's being beneficial. Did we catch them? And no, we didn't put them in the cage and take them to jail because they ran away. But it tells me that if you run when the lights on the police car hit you, that means you were probably up to no good. So I think it's definitely very beneficial as we transition more proactive versus reactive. That kind of rolls into our current status on our staffing. So we have one individual that is in process for our remaining full-time opening. So he's already in process. We're about halfway through on that process. We have another individual that's in process with us for a part-time opening. We're about 95% through with him. So that paperwork will be submitted to standards for his certification most likely next week. So hopefully if standards gets that back to us fairly quickly, he'll be sworn in. That'll give us a little more depth on our part-time side as we continue trying to staff up, which is going to allow us to send our officers to training and kind of add on the extras that we need around here, getting more people certified. for individual things that they're interested in. Very good information tonight, and I'm very happy to say the school board, or the superintendent, I guess I will put it at her desk, have agreed to fund our additional SRO that we have requested, and we've really been pushing and trying to get that in place before this coming school year. So they have agreed to fund that additional SRO at 100%. So we will be opening up a position, looking to backfill and likely moving an internal candidate to that SRO spot. So it will be a floating SRO, which means they won't per se be assigned to any one school, but they'll be able to float around where the need is. It's obviously going to be very beneficial for our middle school, as they have all the additional kids being relocated that would have been the rising sixth grade at Knox that are actually going to be coming to us for at least the next 2 years. So that number of students is likely going to come close to doubling our population in our middle school. So it's a very good benefit that we'll have this additional officer. And again, thank you to the board for supporting our vehicle purchases, because this is one of those times where it caught us. We're getting a free position that's paid for 100%. And if we didn't have a car on the way right now, we would be in a real big mess for finding a vehicle for that officer to drive, or they would be in a vehicle that has 160, 170,000 miles. So I believe we're going to have a vehicle that we can actually take off patrol and send over there. It's got about 60,000 miles on it, so it'll be a fine vehicle to go for SRO position. So we're very happy about that. Speaking of SROs, they're very busy. Obviously, school is out currently. However, we have been doing summer school at North Rand High School, so we've had an SRO assigned over to the high school. SRO REAP has been helping out with the camps that the sheriff's office have hosted. So they've hosted, I believe it's 3 camps over the summer for juveniles in the area. So he asked if he would be allowed to do that. So obviously we want him to be involved in the community as much as he can. So he's been doing that. So as the camps and summer school wraps up, we'll give them a little vacation time, and we'll start putting them on special projects. We're getting ready to put up new signs in all of our businesses. Everybody's seen the little paper signs that people have printed up, free ride in a police car if you steal. So we just have plastic ones of those made up. So they're going to go around and update our business listing and put those signs up, kind of make one-on-one contact with every business in the town, just to kind of update that and make sure our business owners have any concerns that they need to convey to us. But definitely, if you have any other generalized questions, I will try to answer them.
2 things. As you've already brought up, it might be good that the officer that travels in front of Mr. String's house curtail the lights a little bit or limit them to the roadway. So,
yeah, I believe it's going to be a time where he may have to flip them off right, flip them off as he passes that block.
Let me chime in on that too, because living in close proximity to the complainant, I appreciate having our police officers drive through our neighborhood, and I appreciate the lights canvassing the area. So it may be a matter of just turning them off to that one single location.
Yeah. I really think it's perception. We have had people call in and request us to come by at night and have the lights on, and realistically, they're wanting to know how much we come by. So they like seeing the light flash past their window. It makes them feel safe because they know a police car just drove by their house. So it really is a catch-22 on which way. So
considering that we had that rash of car break-ins,
right.
2 years ago or something like that, and I don't know that Mr. Srini was there when all that happened, so I don't know that he's aware of the background with that, but that sort of thing helps prevent that type of.
Definitely. I wish I could put a number on it, but I will tell the board it's very, very beneficial when there's a car riding around. And the real goal with us staffing up is not going to be to have 2 or 3 people riding around with their spotlights on. Likely we want some people that are going to be proactive in a different avenue. So there's always going to be, our goal is always to have somebody patrol, what we call patrolling the grid. So they're riding the streets, checking and making sure they don't see suspicious activity or people walking around, going through backyards and whatnot. So we'll definitely try to cater to everybody that we can. But as a rule of thumb, you will see and hear more of us going up the streets with the lights on as far as looking for individuals that may be up to no good. So.
The other thing I had, which we talked about at our pre-agenda meeting, is our problem house here on Yadkin Avenue. Has there been any budging of the courts?
I have a little info that I can tell you. I know the date is set for July 12th, so they did set a date for it to be heard. Obviously, I have pushed for a much faster resolution. So we will see where we get if they're able to move that up. There is a potential for that. So I don't want to say in open forum that we're going to make it happen, but I feel pretty good. There's a potential it will be heard before that date. And definitely I will try to provide an update definitely by the next board meeting, but I believe we'll see a resolution to that. So.
If I may also just, we were talking about lights on patrol vehicles. I would just, if you could offer a little bit about the general functionality of all our patrol vehicles, including what appears to be a pickup truck. There's certainly, they're certainly equipped to transport folks in custody. They have cage, et cetera. If you want to just make sure people understand that.
Yeah, I'll hit on that very briefly. It kind of brings up an extra point. I'll just speak out really quick. Yes, they're all equipped with cages. So I will tell you that we're having very, very good luck running pickups on patrol. They're a lot easier to get prisoners in and out of. So obviously reduces the potential for the prisoner to be injured, reduces the potential for the officer to be injured, either trying to get the individual into the vehicle or get them out of the vehicle. So it is very easy with the side steps to help an individual who's handcuffed into the back of the truck. The doors swing open very wide. So it's definitely beneficial. For certain areas in the nation, that's probably uncommon to see pickups, but I know everybody started seeing the sheriff's office and other agencies in this county utilize them, and other counties in close proximity to here. So I think that's going to be a moving trend, as law enforcement is transitioned to either pickups or SUVs. The car market for law enforcement has become almost null and void. So I would say within the next few years, there will be no more police cars, per se, actual cars made. I think it's all going to be
highway
SUVs.
patrol. Our job isn't necessarily high-speed chases. We try to avoid those. We can.
Definitely.
But we are in need of more utility type vehicles that can function in multiple roles.
Definitely. And I will tell you that, another agency in this county just sold one of their SUVs, received over $10,000 for it. So that is very good looking forward. If everybody remembers what police cars typically sell for, you're talking a few thousand. So we've always been very fortunate if we received $2,500 or $3,000 out of a police car. We're going to be able to sell trucks and SUVs when we're ready to decommission them and retire them, and bring a lot of money back into the general fund. So it's kind of a side benefit, and the very little cost over what a standard sedan costs us. So definitely a lot of benefits to running those vehicles.
All right. Other questions for Chief Bob? All right. Thank you, sir.
Stay
Thanks
safe.
for all
Thank
you're
you.
doing. Chief Lanham, Fire Department.
I'm not going to be up here as long.
He said
How are
he
y'all
wasn't
this
going
afternoon?
to.
You
We're
have
good.
my prepared report before you. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. The one thing I did want to talk about was our smoke alarm canvas was on the 3rd. Staff attempted to do that to the best of their ability. We're able to install 6 detectors, and then that time frame they ran 4 calls after that. So it kind of was thrown off a little bit. Coffee with the chief was this morning. Mr. Franzese showed up to support us. And then just remind you, a week from this coming Saturday is the fire truck show at the Transportation Museum from 9 to 3 with the parade following. So last I heard, I think there was around 50 fire trucks registered to be in attendance.
This Saturday?
The 24th,
The
week
24th.
from this coming. Yes, sir. Have any additional questions for me?
I just want to say thank you. I know we've read in the paper a lot about the fire on Ellis Street at the old school building. And I enjoyed seeing the picture of the Spencer truck front and center. So thank you all for your mutual aid.
Staff did a great job. So it's nice.
Where are we with the Dragon boat?
It is still coming along. We're getting there. We need more. We need more females. Obviously. I will promise you that it's on my desk and on my to-do list this week, and I can send out an update tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, we missed the opportunity to buy our own boat so we could practice all year.
I'm not sure that that's a bad thing.
It just wasn't in the budget. Now we can't push that.
We keep it at Sam's house.
Well, thank you. Thank you for leading that too, for the
What's that?
town. All right.
Any further questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Y'all
sir.
are
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Taylor, Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board again.
Good evening.
Just a reminder that we will be observing the 4th of July holiday. It falls a little weird this year. It's on a Tuesday, so Monday trash will be standard, off on Tuesday, and then Tuesday will be on Wednesday. So it'll be just a little strange just because of the way that day falls. The process of the painting of the library is just about finished. Hope to be, if weather permits, by the end of the week, they will be done. They'll be washing the windows and everything, finishing up towards the end of the week. I talked to Jose just the other day, so and everything looks good over there. They're doing a great job. Whatever that, just mentioned the trash truck is ready to be picked up.
Nice.
We're finalizing the USDA loan applications and all that kind of stuff. Jay has not given me a date as far as closing, but whenever we get the correct documents, then we'll do the closing, and then we'll be able to accept that truck. So, talked to Mike Shelton. We're going to be beginning some sidewalk renovations starting next. If the weather permits, the end of this week. He's got some other jobs in front of. If not, we'll get them next week, but we will have them done before the end of June to use up the rest of our Powell bill money. And apparently, just came into town a minute ago, the state is doing more ADA ramps because up at Spring Hill, I saw where they had dug one up and actually poured it back. So they didn't let me know they were coming. I just kind of found out. I know they're doing quite a few of them in Rockwell as well. They're getting those done. They started with the one on Spring Hill. I'm assuming they're going to catch several others that we put in several years ago, all of them up Salisbury Avenue. So we'll see as they go. If I know any more, I'll let you know on an update.
And they were working maybe a couple weeks ago. I believe there was some on that south end of town. I think that they hit prior to this week, but yeah.
All right, I just happened to see them today.
Yep.
Yeah, they were out there 2 weeks ago too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Well, they're also doing a renovation on the power line.
I was going to ask
if you've
about
noticed that. They're tying in right there where they had gotten to right at Longs Ferry. They're bringing that new line all the way up Salisbury Avenue. I know until they get right there at the fire station. Now, from there, I don't know. They said that was the leg that they were working on, replacing all that old copper line with new and poles.
Well, everything goes underground after that, doesn't
Right.
it? Yeah.
Right. And then we already did the loop that came down 3rd and around Yadkin behind Town Hall. So I don't really know where they're going to go from there, but they said there was other work in town they would be doing. They didn't specify. So, but I do know that that's going to be one of the major legs that we've had problems with that old copper line that will definitely help service here in town. Just want to remind everybody also the movie night on the 17th at the ballpark. We'll get everything dressed up. They're going to try to save and wait till Thursday, somewhere around there to mow this week.
Okay.
This ball's kind of on the end.
And I'll get the key from you.
Yes, for the restrooms, and then I'll talk to Phil about getting the power open and making sure all that's done.
Do you have a
And
time?
also-
Do you have a time?
It'll be about dusk. The old 97 Kettle Corn Company is going to provide refreshment.
Some 8:30, 9ish.
Yeah.
Somewhere around in there.
I think the guys come to set up about 6.
Okay.
Get the screen up and everything situated. But the movie probably won't start till dusk, which is about 8:30, 8:45.
Okay. Well, that's very good. And also, there's going to be a big Babe Ruth baseball tournament at the ballpark. The 22nd, I believe, is on a Thursday. They're going to play 6 games on Thursday from 9 until like 7 o'clock that night. And they'll be playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Who is it now?
It's the Babe Ruth. I believe it's the 12U. I'd have to ask Phil exactly again, but they're going to be there for 5 days, and they're hosting a big tournament over at the 8th Street Ballpark.
That's awesome.
So I just wanted to mention that way if you have a chance and you want to go over and watch some great baseball, go over and take in. They'll have the concession stands
In
open.
the afternoon or evening?
It'll be all day on Thursday and Friday. Saturday I did not know a schedule, or Sunday, but then they're going to host the 3 championship games will be held on Monday. So they'll be there basically for 5 days.
That's great.
Because he and I are trying to work out trash collection and how we're going to get it and all that stuff. So, and he just told me, well, I just got back in town, but I found out about it on Monday.
Are they going to try to set up concessions?
They'll have the concession stands open and hot dogs and all that kind of stuff,
Great.
from what I understand. So if you want to go out and enjoy the baseball, there'll be game after game after game, from what I
And
understand.
what's the dates again?
It's the 22nd is on that Thursday. I don't have my count. Is
It's
that
a
right?
Thursday.
That's Thursday. So it's 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. So the 22nd through the 26th. And I can get Phip to give me some times. I didn't, or Brett Airwood can give me times on that. But I wanted to mention that because I just found out about it. So, and I think they did too. I think they submitted to get it, and it just came through saying, "Hey, yes, we're coming." So that'll be great entry fees for the league. Be good for them. So, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
This is not a question, but I was in one of the meetings, and I'm not sure if it was with Metrolina or Centralina. I'm not sure who it was, but the discussion was at our table about getting an intramural game set up between the different towns and having yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Mine's
have-
our
we could have that
project
here. We could
coordinator
host
back
it.
there. He can.
That's right.
We have talked several times about getting just among ourselves, like Fire Against Public Works and police and that kind of stuff. It just never has done. We haven't got there yet.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, and we're getting older.
You can bill it as an old timers game.
Yeah, that's
One other thing.
Yes, sir.
We've been without a sign coming in from the south. Welcome to Spencer for a long, long time. Remember the brick one that used to get
yes.
clobbered every time we would put it back up?
Right.
And I asked you not to put it up again until we found a suitable location.
Exactly.
Well, I think it would be nice now that we're making improvements in the town that we start maybe looking at seriously putting in some type of
So we're going to
welcome
get
sign.
one with this program we're doing with the county.
Okay.
So they've got them at the north end of town, south end of town, and maybe one additional one, I think, coming in from East Spencer.
Right. And
Yeah.
then there's going to be other signs like 8th Street Ballpark, the sign that just got mowed over
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
We're not going to put it back because we do have a sign coming for that. There'll be some other wayfinding signs that'll be introduced, but we need to get the civic organizations back on that sign once we get it up. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And I've got all those signs at my shop.
Okay.
They're
But yeah, the
waiting.
concepts are really nice.
They are. They look very good.
Is there not a sign down between?
There is one down there near Swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
and there was one on this end, similar. Well, there is one, I think,
okay.
still.
There's
one
still
more,
that one.
But there was a brick one. There was the large brick one that got
Okay.
hid right on the
Yeah.
curb.
Like
Okay.
twice. Within what? Months of each
I
other?
mean, just a
I
dead
know-
shot. You
I
couldn't have
know
picked a
more
better
got
place
it.
for it to get clobbered. I mean,
We no more got it fixed and they ran over it again. So
And I
the
was
second time
told,
leveled it.
and I was told that there was the post on the one up at the north end along about 17th Street the pole was deteriorating.
It is deteriorating.
Yeah.
Yes. Termites, ants, one of the two, are deteriorating that pole. But with the new signs coming, we're okay for the time being.
Okay.
It's not going to just fall yet. So.
Anything
Right.
else?
This street, the school crossing sign on Charles Street
Okay.
needs to be trimmed again.
Okay. On the elementary school or the
That's-
middle school?
It's the one where the school crossing sign is. There at
Okay.
504.
I got you. Okay. I will get that.
Thought about going out and lopping it off, but I hadn't.
Okay.
Mayor Williams, if I might, brought up the truck financing, and that's a USDA loan for that. And so we're having to use an attorney that has a trust account because they won't fund it directly to the town. So John Overby, who's helped us before, is a good local attorney. He's engaged, and there was some activity on this at the end of last week, and he has submitted as of I think maybe Friday. I think he submitted the form that he needed to submit to USDA for them to then begin to release closing documents to him. So I anticipate that activity is going to ramp up, and especially now that we know the truck's ready. We're kind of pushing, Peter's pushing, and I'm pushing John to get that done. But anyway, so there's some activity recently on that, and hopefully John Overby can get us done in the next little bit.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, you have your finance department report in your packet. Mr. Franzese, anything you want to add to that?
Nothing to add. Again, certainly appreciate, just as a general topic, working towards our budget adoption tonight.
Thank you. Any questions on finance report from the board? All right, we'll move to our library report.
All right. So as you all know, in May, Beverly had her big yearly event, and the Burnett Sisters Band was there, and they've done things such as performing at Merle Fest in 2022. And just as a personal note, I will say we thoroughly enjoyed them. My fiance and I went, and we think we found our first dance song from them. So, anyway, and the North Rowan High School, they did a couple of numbers from Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. And then a local Spencer jazz musician, Jimmy Alston, he played his guitar and his wife sang. And he also has some artwork over at the Rail Walk Gallery in downtown Salisbury. If anybody is over that way, you can look at that. And then Will Beatty of Columbia, South Carolina, he played his keyboard while his wife sang. They did more praise and worship songs. And then the Big Tasty food truck came from Concord, and the food was really good from the truck. The one item that caught a lot of attention was the redneck fries, which sounded a little too spicy for me, so I didn't try them, but people thought they were good. And next year, Beverly is hoping to incorporate the local youth more. So if anybody knows someone who, at the schools or anything that is talented, then let them know, and hopefully we can get them involved next year.
Thank you. Any questions on the library report? All right, we'll move to the town manager report. Mr. Franzese.
Thank you again, Mayor and members of the board. I have a few items to mention. One, we do have a generator behind the building here that was installed in May. However, we are waiting on resolution of a control panel issue with that generator. So when should the power go out, it will turn on and start generating power, but we have to manually
transfer it, man.
Get it into the building here until this is resolved. So I'd say we're 95% of the way there, and we have what we need to keep our operations up, just not quite as seamlessly as it should be. But the electrician has ordered the part. They told us it would be here within a few weeks and should be getting installed. I don't know if we have any specific dates yet, but that's the latest on that. Our core working group with the Department of Commerce, our first meeting was last month, and we're actually having another meeting this week on Thursday for that core working group. That's been a good process so far, and between the last meeting and this meeting, there was a community survey that was offered out there to get some feedback from folks on the topic. So that process continues, and also want to mention.
What time is that meeting?
It's at noon. Yep. And I'll see me before you go because I need your lunch order for that.
Oh, okay.
But the last thing I was going to mention before I actually, I believe Joe Morris is still with us. I'm going to ask him to give an update on the trailhead. But on July 1st, the Transportation Museum's Fireworks Over Spencer event is returning, and we're planning to add some accommodations here as well, including a few food trucks and some restroom facilities, and to try to also coordinate the approach to parking to make sure it's done in an orderly fashion. So that's what we're working on, but that will be a fun event for the community. The museum is going to open to anyone starting at 5:30 p.m. and then there will be a lot of activities on the museum property, live entertainment and food and all that festivities, and the fireworks should begin around 9:15 p.m. And of course, our fire and police departments will be involved on that side of the road as well, and making sure things go off smoothly. All right, so I see Joe is now visible to us, and Joe, if you could give us the latest and greatest on the landscaping and anything else happening up at the river.
Make him bigger.
Make him bigger.
Okay. Thanks, Peter, for the introduction. Just as a quick update to the board, the project has been making a lot of progress over the last several weeks. We did have some weather delays back during the winter that got us behind more than we wanted to be. And then we had a glitch with a retaining wall that was to be built in a location that had very poor soil. And so we had to do some reinforcement underneath the wall and have some testing done to ensure that the retaining wall is structurally sound, and that is complete. And that allowed the contractor to accelerate their construction schedule. The concourse paving is complete. All of the decorative paving is in place for the largest area closest to the bridge. As I mentioned, the retaining wall is complete. The stone seat walls are finished. The flagpole has been up for several weeks. We did have a little bit of an issue there with, we have a solar light for that flagpole that was not functioning. They replaced the solar panel and have turned it on. And perhaps this evening, as it gets a little darker, I'll take a trip down to Spencer to see if it's actually functioning as it should be. We did add, as part of the town's responsibility for that project, we added a water hydrant. We had some funding in the budget for some permitting that we really didn't need. And so we were able to work with Salisbury Row and Utility Department to have a water tap installed. Our Public Works Department worked under the auspices of a licensed plumber to install a water hydrant on the site. And after a few rounds of inspection and that sort of thing, we actually have a water hydrant on the site. So what remains? Essentially, it's landscaping and the paving of the parking lot and the trail. The parking lot and the trail have been rough graded, the stone is in place, but we made a sort of administrative decision, I suppose, working with the project manager at Benish and also the contractor to wait on the paving of the parking lot and the trail until all the landscaping is done. We want to have all the fine grading and planting done so that we don't have equipment moving on fresh asphalt at the end of the project, which would simply ruin the overall look of it. The landscaper was scheduled to be here last Thursday. There was some rain in the area where they do most of the work up near Greensboro and Winston-Salem. And so they got a few days behind, but they arrived today. They've offloaded their equipment. And when I left there this morning, I guess around 11 o'clock, they were having topsoil delivered to the site to finish out the grading, and then the installation of the plant material will take place over the next few days. The asphalt paver, paving subcontractor, will arrive as soon as that landscape work is done. And the goal is to have all of this wrapped up by July 1st. And they gave us that date recently. If things go really well, it could possibly be met as a realistic date to have the project finished. I imagine there will be a punch list. I imagine there'll be things that we see in the landscaping and on the site once the paving is done that we'll want to have corrected or done perhaps a slightly different way. But we're moving toward a July 1st deadline. And so I think the next major decision for the board would be to schedule a ribbon cutting ceremony sometime in July and to invite all our friends and neighbors to come out and enjoy the Yadkin River Trailhead. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morris. Questions from the board?
That's this July?
Yes.
Just checking.
Let me add in real quick that we know that the bridge was actually dedicated in 1924. It started construction in 1922 and was finished in the Wilcox Bridge. And there was an official dedication in 2024. I don't know the exact date. I'll have to do a little research on that. But in 2024, we'll have, a 100th anniversary of the Wilcox Bridge, and I hope we'll be able to work with our neighbors in Davidson County to have the ceremony. They own the bridge. Maybe they would invite us to the ceremony, but certainly I hope we'll be able to participate in some way.
One thing regarding the bridge, Joe, there used to be a bronze plaque that was embedded on this end of the bridge, okay, that was removed some time ago. And it had the date, and I don't know if it was vandalized, if someone, someone removed it, or if Davidson County had it removed and maybe moved to a secure place. Do you know anything about that?
So that's my understanding exactly. There's actually one or a place for that placard on either end of the bridge. So there would have been two bronze placards at the beginning or the dedication of the bridge. My understanding is that at least one of them, I don't know about two, at least one of them was removed, and it's in the Davidson Historical Museum in Lexington. And so whether they have both of them, I don't know, but I can find out. But my understanding is that at least one is preserved and is on display in Lexington. So it was taken care of.
Is that something that we could consider down the road, is maybe making a replica of that and having it reinstalled?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a great idea. And as I mentioned, that the bridge, of course, belongs to Davidson County, but we're on very friendly terms with folks there. And they might want to have, sort of a rededication of the bridge at some point in 2024. And I think I'm a little bit out of my lane here, but yeah, I believe they're having an ongoing centennial program or 150th anniversary or bicentennial. I don't know what they're celebrating exactly over there, but that might be something that we could include. And in 2023 is still the year of the trail in North Carolina, and I think that would be a very fitting thing to have a conversation about. The problem with bronze placards, unfortunately, is that people steal them and melt them down. So we have to do something that was really
I know you haven't talked
well planned and secure.
I know you haven't talked any more about I can see my house from here zip line, but I wonder if we could have a magnet fishing event for 2024.
I like that idea. I like that idea. That would be a very interesting event to have. There's no telling what's thrown off that bridge.
Well, thank you, Mr. Morris, very much.
You have any idea when we'll hear anything about the Pardis grant?
That will likely come in late September or early October.
Okay.
The Parks and Recreation Authority has a meeting scheduled for either June or July. I don't know the date, but at that meeting they will set the date for when they're going to vote on these awards in the fall. So we should know within the next month the date to tune into that.
Okay.
And as far as setting a ribbon cutting, I hate to do that now with Jesus.
I think it would be good to see how the landscaping progresses. It could be that, for example, if all the trees get installed to our satisfaction and we feel good about it, that's one thing. If for some reason we're going to be in a mode that we need to wait a little bit on trees or other landscaping elements, not that we have any specific indication of that, but just the fact that it's now mid to late June, I'm hoping that is able to be carried out as we hope, but we may want to see how that goes. The other thing I'll mention is we do have Race to the River coming in September. That could be another target date if we want to wait a little bit and not be out there in July, but that definitely some options.
Very good. All right. So with that, we'll move to requesting comments from the mayor and board. We'll start with Ms. Sledge.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the fire department for continuing to fill the water containers down at the community garden. I'm using those regularly to keep those trees that I planted going. So I'm using about 16 gallons a week. So thank you for keeping those things filled. And we obviously don't reply when people are here making public comments, but I would like to say that I welcome Ms. Sheffield's coming to talk to us today. I would like to find the time that we can all live in harmony. And I have on my coexist button tonight. I think if we could find a way to all live in peace and in harmony and accept everyone from who they are, this whole world could be a better place. So I will say that there are two events coming up this month that you might want to be aware of. The first one is on June the 19th, which is Juneteenth, which is a celebration of the day that the last state in the Union got the news that emancipation had occurred, and that happened in Texas. That will be at the Green Tower on the Green. What is it?
Bell Tower.
Bell Tower in Salisbury. And then on the 24th of June, also at the Bell Tower, it's Pride Day. And so I would invite anyone who is welcoming and would support that community to come out and be there for that event as well. And that's all I have, I think, for tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Sledge. Mr. Muhammad.
Yes. I would again like to thank the department heads, the staff, and the members of the board here for doing the work that we do, and more or less the residents that were present and that are watching with their concerns that were brought up, and no, it's not ignored, and that we all should come in a position of peace and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to, before I start on my comments, I'd like to say this, and this is about the so-called Christmas parade that we've been visited today. If I said anything in the past at this meeting, I'd like to apologize for that, because personally, I don't think I did. I'm not singling out any particular person. I certainly don't have anything against any types of people as far as that goes. But if I did say something, I'm sorry for this. And, you know, my family heritage is kind of involved in this parade, where my dad was one of the founding people that started this parade. And I always wanted to see this parade continue in Spencer, no matter what it's called or what it's all about. And I personally, I had a challenge this year to work with a lot of the older people in Spencer to get involvement, and I thought we did an outstanding good job working with volunteers from Salisbury putting on the parade. So again, it does trouble me to think that something's being said about this board about the parade, because I don't think this board is against any particular groups of people or anything else. I hope not, and it's not my personal issue. Now, my comment tonight, I read up a little letter. I'd like to say this, if you don't mind. In the past couple of months, our community has been plagued by something that we have never experienced very often, and it's gun violence. We have had several alarming incidents where gunshots have been fired, especially next to a church building. We have a music school half a block away where children and parents had to run into the building for safety because shots were fired. We've had people shot at. One person was hit in a bullet, having to be rushed to a trauma center. We found gun shell casings along 5th Street. All these incidents have centered on one location, one house, and one group of people. These people in the house has refused to cooperate with our police department. These people have refused to identify the people that is involved. These people are also not paying the rent on the house that they are living to their landlord. At our May Town Board meeting, we had a large group of mothers with children living in this area pleading with our police department to stop this violence. They complained that many of the children are running wild in town after dark. Many of these children are hanging around this particular house. At this time, our police department and landlords have tried unsuccessfully to have these people evicted from their residence. Unfortunately, the eviction has slowed up, being tied up in court. Our police department has tried several times to get a case set up for this coming month. However, it's been told that there is no time available for the court docket in June. This case would only take 10 minutes of court time. I know Chief has told us we might be looking at it earlier, and that's great news. But I want to reassure our citizens of Spencer that our police department and our town staff is trying to do everything possible to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate what Alderman Miller stated about the house on Yadkin Avenue and the problems that have been caused there. Aside from that, I would like to thank John Softly specifically, and the rest of the staff that worked on this budget. I know that these are unsettling times. With the reevaluation, increasing everything in Spencer, almost 40% in terms of property values. The cost of living has skyrocketed, and it doesn't seem to be lessening any. The problems that all of this is causing in terms of the tremendous pressures placed upon families in terms of incomes, the problems that it's caused in terms of high pricing with the homeless populations skyrocketing. These are, again, unsettling times, and that's an understatement. I would hope that the citizens of Spencer understand that we are trying to do a lot of things right now with the addition to the fire department, the acquisition of a new fire truck at the same time, the acquisition of a new garbage truck, and all the rest of these things that are, cost a lot of money. And we hope, we've looked at this budget and we hope that it's a good choice and a good good for the town. And I hope that people understand that that we don't take this very lightly, because we live here too. So again, my thanks to everyone that was involved. Again, especially John Softly for all his efforts and showing us a budget that we felt that would be beneficial for the town next year and into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Mr.
Howe. First, just to echo a bit, I realize with the budget, we're all going to have to give a little more in property taxes, and I understand that's a stress. I know I think we've gotten some communication from folks who've expressed their concerns, and I get that, I do. But rest assured that this board, and I think more importantly the staff, they have a plan. There are desperate needs that the town has both now and as we grow. And the worst thing ever is to grow and then know you need something and you're already 6 months after you need it. So this is going to benefit everyone. It's going to help everyone. Yes, it's going to hurt a little bit more. I get that. But I think we're all going to be better off for it. And I don't think 1 cent of it's going to go to waste. And I think it's incumbent on us as the board and the staff to make sure that doesn't happen. Secondly, I guess I want to be clear. I always endeavor to be crystal clear about what I mean when I say it, and then say what I mean. So, with regard to our public comment earlier, first, I appreciate everyone who commented, bringing your comment. It's a time-honored and important right for those to come before the government and express their concern. And I appreciate them coming and sharing their concerns. And I hope we, to the extent that we did not convey our intent well, maybe we need to do a better job, which is why I'm hopefully clearly conveying my intent now. My only concern with the parade, my singular and one concern, was going back to that September meeting of last year, when in public comment where we could not respond, this town, this board, the staff was disrespected. I felt that way then. I barely controlled myself not to speak. I still feel that way. I'm still steamed about it. And though I'm not going to pull the politician, everyone else says it. I assure you, I've talked to other people, both in this town and outside this town, they felt the same way. In the interest of harmony, I did not vocalize my concern directly. In the interest of harmony and working together, I came and helped out with the parade, volunteered, we're on the float. Brought my kids along at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning and put out signs and all that good stuff too, like many of us did. So my singular concern since that meeting has been whether this town is fully included, talking about inclusivity, is this town fully included in the plans of that parade? It sounded to me in that meeting as if they were trying to give us the shove. If that's not what they meant, they poorly conveyed it. So, my singular concern when I raised the question in last month's meeting was whether and to what extent this town would be involved in the parade. I have no concern for who's in the parade. I haven't given one thought about it, nor do I plan on it. It's not my concern. Who they, as a private 501c3, elect to put in the parade is their entire business and their First Amendment right to do so. I have no concern over that. My singular and sole concern is whether this town is fairly and accurately represented, and I submit in that September meeting, we were not. So that's my concern. I would like to think that we have a path forward. Maybe we don't. And if we don't, we don't. But I want to be clear about what I mean. And to the extent that social politics or national politics have injected themselves into this conversation, I would hope that if you watch these meetings, you know, I go out of my way to leave those out. They have no role in this governance process whatsoever in this room. And certainly do not inform my decision making. I'll leave it at that. And if anyone who's listening has other conversations or questions, you know how to get in touch with me.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Mayor Pro Tem.
There's not really much to add on anything that anyone has said tonight. I would just like to re-emphasize again the need for civility, and we all need to be mindful of that, and remember that we represent all the people, and we're not representing our individual thoughts and opinions, and we're living in volatile times, and it doesn't take much for things to go very fast in a wrong direction. So we all need to do a better job of being more mindful of our civility. I remember that was one thing that I ran on, because I like to see civility in government. I can totally disagree with someone politically, socially, economically, but I can still be civil. I'm not all the time, but I try to be. And we all need to do a better job of that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll end with just a few comments. One, I want to circle back to the recently passed budget and thank all of our staff for the time that y'all put in, the time each of the departments have put into making the requests, the manager for the time and pulling all those requests together, and to Mr. Softly for the time working through all that and making the numbers work. You know, I think where we've ended is a fair balance between the reality of an increasing value of real estate markets, which for those that would be trying to sell their houses would be a wonderful thing right now. For those of us that are keeping our houses and having to pay taxes, maybe not so much. But it does underscore the value, and that Spencer's value is increasing. And that's a good thing. Yes, it hurts us in our pockets a little more sometimes, but it's a good thing that our value as a town is increasing. That's I think what we're all here for, and that's what our residents want to see, is that we become a place that is valued within the state. And I think we're well on our way to achieving that. But what we've done is we've been able to provide a budget that accommodates the needs that we have right now, as well as many of the needs that for many years had been deferred. And I think that's the thing we sometimes lose sight of, is there were things that we had not done that we now have to move forward and we're trying to make happen. And that if we don't make happen, they're only going to be more expensive and only more taxing to our residents in the future if we don't do that now. And so I commend this board for each of you for having the vision and the fortitude to make those decisions to move forward and make some of these things that have been much needed happen. And I appreciate you for that. The other thing I want to touch on is the public comments that we did receive tonight. Again, like the other members said, I'm very appreciative when you do have public comment, regardless of if it's positive or negative. It's all feedback for us as a board, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. And so I appreciate the folks that showed up tonight. I want to make sure that it is very, very clear that, a couple things. One is regardless of just like our public comment folks are allowed to express their opinions freely and openly because we are a free country, that it is also the right of board members to freely and openly express their opinions. However, as elected officials, we are looked at when we make those comments a little bit differently because we are in the public light. But what I will say is we are free to do that. However, those individual comments do not represent the collective view of the overall board. Only when we have voted does that represent the collective will of the overall board. So what I also want to make sure that we stress tonight is the concerns that were brought up, as Mr. Howe said, had nothing to do with the content of the parade, nothing to do with the inclusivity or lack thereof of the parade, or anything like that. It was simply related to some of the concerns that we had going through the planning and the organizational process, which was not easy. And I think we talked through that. We put a lot of work in, just like the organizers did, in planning and working together and trying to arrange volunteers. And we put a lot of work into working through some concerns and issues that certain individuals had. And I felt like we worked through those issues, and we did a very good job of that. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't. And that's okay, right? Sometimes we have to put in the hard work. What I will say is when some of those concerns were brought up, one of the requests that I brought up to the committee was for them to come before our board and speak to us about the concerns that they had, which they did. And perhaps it's my fault that I did not give them space on the agenda to have more time to talk through those with us. But in the public comment section, yes, I understand the board, we were all a little surprised by the tone and the nature of those comments. But my suggestion would be that we need to put that behind us. We need to find a way to work together. I've continued to say this. But in working together, one of the things that I had done was step up to serve on that committee, to serve as a liaison, to try and bring folks together, because one of the first concerns that I heard from parade organizers when I was elected was that Spencer wasn't pulling their weight and wasn't being involved. And so I volunteered to step up and serve in that role to try and bring folks together. And I feel like we had done that, but obviously it goes to show me that we need more involvement from our local citizens. Those need to be the ones that are on that committee. I do not need to be serving on the parade committee, nor really any other elected officials. That I would look to our citizens to be the ones to step up, get involved, collaborate with the 'Tis the Season organizers, and participate in that committee. Our board, I would implore you to support the organizers, support our local community officials, volunteer and help out. But I don't know that we need to be the ones that are serving on the steering committee, or at least in my case, that I need to be, because as they say, no good deed goes unpunished. So with that, I want to help, I want to volunteer, I want to be a part of it, and I would hope that each of you would as well. But I implore our community members to get involved, serve on that committee, step up, be a part of it, provide your input and your voice. And I want to thank the people that have done that. I see one of them in our room right now that's been involved. There are a lot of people that have devoted a lot of time and a lot of effort, not just in the past few years, but over many, many years to make the parade a success. And I would hate to see that go away. And so I want folks to get involved and continue to collaborate and work together for the good of everyone, regardless of race, sex, religion, creed, any of that, because Spencer is one united community, and we want to be united with Salisbury in this effort. So we need to find a way to make that happen. And I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. I appreciate the folks that have spoken. My request would be that let's move forward together and find a way to do that without dwelling on the past. So with that, that's all I have tonight. I appreciate your time and your input. We have reached the end of our agenda, but I do have a request to briefly go into executive session for General Statute 143-318.11 for the purpose of personnel discussion. If there is a motion.
I move we go into closed session.
I'll second it.
There's a motion by Ms. Sledge, second by Mr. Morgan. All in favor? All right, all opposed? All right, we stand in closed session.